The city above Nirali's station did not sleep, mostly because it had been programmed not to. Artificial dawn rolled across the transit domes every 6 hours, light sliding over metal streets and glass towers with the patience of a machine that would never get tired of repeating itself. The soldier stood at his assigned checkpoint, helmet tucked under his arm, watching travelers flow past like a river that had learned to walk upright. He had learned long ago that interstellar crowds all moved the same way. Fast when they were late, slow when they were lost, and always directly into your personal space when you least wanted it. His wrist unit chimed for the 5th time in an hour, reminding him that nothing was wrong. He muttered that this was exactly the sort of thing something wrong would say. A group of off-world merchants drifted by, arguing softly in a language that sounded like polite glass breaking. A maintenance drone bumped his boot and apologized in 3 dialects. He was just deciding whether to apologize back when he noticed the woman. She wasn't dramatic about it. No guards pushing people aside, no theatrical pauses. She simply existed in the crowd in a way that made the air around her feel organized. Her hood was drawn low, but not low enough to hide the long, elegant ears curving back from her hairline. Alien, yes, but close enough to human that the difference felt intentional rather than strange. The soldier frowned. His scanner had flagged nothing. That alone was suspicious. Scanners loved flagging things. They were bored machines with authority issues. She passed closer, her gaze briefly meeting his. Calm, assessing, amused even as if she had just caught him staring at a stain on his own armor. He straightened reflexively, annoyed at himself for doing it. "Don't do anything stupid," he muttered, which was his usual advice to himself and almost never effective. Overhead, the station's weather grid adjusted, simulating a light breeze that carried the scent of engineered ozone and something faintly floral. Somewhere deeper in the city, a timer ticked down toward an exact, carefully calculated second. The soldier felt a prickle at the back of his neck, the kind training manuals called intuition and veterans called trouble. The woman slowed for half a step, just enough to glance sideways as if checking her reflection in a polished wall. Their eyes met again. This time her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. For reasons he couldn't explain and would later fail to justify in every official report, he shifted his stance, blocking a path he hadn't been assigned to block. The wrist unit chimed again, politely confused. Nothing exploded. Nothing screamed. The crowd kept moving, and somewhere very far away, a plan that had taken years to build began to unravel, all because one tired soldier decided, on instinct, to stand in the wrong place at exactly the right moment. The soldier kept his new position for exactly 12 seconds before his wrist unit began protesting in earnest. A soft vibration first, then a warning pulse, then a message that politely informed him he was standing where he had no business standing. He ignored it, which was another habit he had developed during long years of service, right next to ignoring bad advice and ignoring his knees when they predicted weather. The crowd compressed, then flowed around him, irritated but obedient. The woman stopped as well, just behind his shoulder. He could feel her presence without looking, the way one could feel a pressure change before a hatch opened. "You're off pattern," she said quietly. He glanced sideways. "So are you. Mine just comes with a uniform and a very judgmental device." As if offended, the wrist unit chimed again and displayed a blinking schematic of his assigned route. He silenced it with his thumb. Somewhere in the station's deeper layers, something clicked, recalculated, and began improvising. The air shimmered for half a second to his left. Not enough to alarm civilians, just enough to make the hair on his arms lift. He swore under his breath and stepped forward without thinking, shoulder first, colliding with a passing courier whose package clattered to the floor in a cascade of glowing data slates. "Hey!" the courier snapped. "Sorry," the soldier said automatically, already reaching down. At the same moment, a thin beam of compressed energy sliced through the space where his head had been a heartbeat earlier, and dissipated harmlessly against a shielding field embedded in the station wall. The woman inhaled sharply. That was earlier than expected. "Great," he said. "I hate surprises." The crowd noticed then. Shouts rose. Drones activated, projecting calm blue lights and pre-recorded reassurances that this was not an emergency, which fooled absolutely no one. The soldier grabbed the woman's wrist not roughly but decisively and pulled her into the spill of bodies moving away from the disturbance. "You trust strangers easily," she said, keeping pace. "I don't," he replied. "I trust momentum. It's very convincing." Another shimmer flickered behind them. This one closer. He twisted, bringing his forearm up as his shield emitter flared to life, just in time to deflect a second silent strike. His shield screamed in protest, overheating instantly. "That thing have a warranty?" she asked. "Expired 3 years ago," he said, "like me." They ducked into a maintenance corridor as security finally arrived in earnest, boots pounding, commands echoing. The woman leaned against the wall, composed despite the chaos, studying him with an expression that mixed calculation and something dangerously close to amusement. "You weren't meant to notice," she said. "Yeah," he replied, trying to slow his breathing. "Story of my career." Above them, alarms escalated. Somewhere far beyond the station's orbit, political structures trembled, unaware that their carefully balanced future had just been shoulder-checked by a human with bad knees and worse timing. The maintenance corridor smelled faintly of overheated circuits and regret. The soldier sealed the hatch behind them with a palm slap that hurt more than it should have, then immediately regretted not stretching that morning. The alarms outside shifted pitch, escalating from polite concern to offended authority. "On the bright side," he said, rolling his shoulder, "they'll write a very exciting report about this. On the dark side, I'll be the exciting part." The woman tilted her head, listening to something he couldn't hear. "Security is confused," she said. "They were expecting a single, clean moment. You've given them movement." "Happy to help," he replied. "Movement is my specialty. Standing still makes me nervous." A small spherical drone detached from the ceiling and hovered toward them, its lens glowing blue. The soldier raised his hands automatically. "Easy," he told it. "We're law-abiding citizens who accidentally offended destiny." The drone paused, processed this, then emitted a confused chirp before drifting away, apparently deciding it had not been paid enough to deal with philosophy. The woman watched it go, lips pressing together in what might have been a suppressed smile. "You interfere remarkably well for someone who doesn't know what he's interfering with." "That's also on my resume," he said. "Right under poor impulse control." The corridor lights flickered. For half a second the walls seemed to stretch, reality buffering like a bad transmission. The soldier felt the pressure behind his eyes again. "They're pulling out," the woman said. "The window is gone." "Good," he said. "I was running out of clever ways to almost die." She studied him more openly now, no longer hiding her ears, no longer pretending to be just another traveler. There was weight in her gaze, the kind that came from being listened to too often. "You should have let it happen," she said, not unkindly. "Probably," he admitted. "But then I'd have to live with that. And I already have enough things that wake me up at night." For a moment the alarm softened. The station systems recalibrated, convinced the worst had passed. Somewhere else, unseen observers recalculated losses and began assigning blame. The woman straightened. "They'll separate us soon." "Figures," he said. "We were just starting to bond." She reached out and pressed 2 fingers lightly to his wrist unit. The screen scrambled, then settled into a blank, untraceable slate. "A favor," she said, "for standing where you shouldn't." He looked down at it, then back at her. "You always thank people like this." "Only the inconvenient ones." Footsteps approached, heavy and official. The soldier exhaled slowly, feeling the moment lock into memory. "Well," he said, "if this is where it ends, I'd like it noted I still don't know your name." Her smile this time was real, brief, and dangerous. "You're not supposed to." The hatch slid open, flooding the corridor with light and authority, and the universe quietly adjusted to the fact that things would no longer go according to plan. They didn't take him to a holding cell, which immediately worried him. Experience had taught him that cells were honest. This corridor was not. It curved when it shouldn't, widened without explanation, and hummed with a frequency that made his teeth feel like they were quietly arguing with one another. Two security officers walked ahead, faces unreadable behind adaptive visors. The woman walked beside him, unrestrained. That seemed notable. "I'd like to officially state," he said, "that I am extremely uncomfortable with how calm everyone is." "One learns calm," she replied, "when panic has consequences." "Must be nice," he said. "My panic mostly just embarrasses me." The doors at the end of the corridor did not open so much as decide to stop being doors. Space folded inward, light bending like it had reconsidered its career. He stopped short. "Okay," he said, "that's new, and I've seen a vending machine become self-aware." They stepped through. The room beyond was vast but intimate, technology layered so seamlessly into the architecture that it felt grown rather than built. Surfaces responded to presence, lighting adjusted to breath, and the air itself seemed to listen. The soldier's wrist unit sparked once and went completely dead. "Well," he muttered, lifting it, "now I really can't file that report." The doors sealed behind them. The guards did not follow. He turned slowly, every instinct finally catching up with him. "All right," he said. "Either this is a very polite execution chamber, or I've wandered into something way above my pay grade." The woman stopped at the center of the room. The hum shifted, deepening, resonating with her voice when she spoke. "You disrupted a convergence," she said, "a moment designed to end a reign." He blinked. "I disrupted a commute." She looked at him then, not as a passerby, not as a stranger, but as someone weighing a variable that should not exist. The room responded, projecting star maps, political boundaries, symbols he recognized only from briefings that ended with phrases like "classified beyond clearance." "I am Empress of the Virelian Continuum," she said calmly, "and today I was supposed to die." He stared at her for a long second, then another. "No," he said finally, "absolutely not." Her brow arched. "Not." "I refuse," he continued. "I've had long shifts, near-death experiences, and cafeteria food that violated treaties, but this is too much." A pause, then unexpectedly she laughed. It was quiet, controlled, and startlingly human. "That," she said, "is why you're still alive." He ran a hand over his face. "So let me get this straight. You're an empress. I ruined an assassination. And now I'm standing in a room that could probably turn me into vapor if I sneeze wrong." "Yes. Is there a pamphlet?" Another smile, sharper this time. "There will be consequences." "Figures," he sighed. "There always are." Outside the room, across stations and systems, alarms settled. But the balance they had protected for generations had shifted, ever so slightly, because one soldier had followed instinct instead of orders, and met someone who ruled worlds and found him, inexplicably, amusing. Consequences, it turned out, did not arrive with shackles or threats. They arrived with tea. The soldier sat at a low table that had unfolded itself from the floor with unnecessary elegance. A thin cup hovered in front of him, steaming gently, the liquid inside shifting colors like it couldn't decide what flavor to be. "I don't drink unknown substances," he said. "Last time I did, I lost 6 hours and gained a tattoo that glows when I'm stressed." "It's a calming infusion," the Empress replied, seated opposite him, "tailored to your biology." "That makes it sound worse." She watched him for a moment, then took a sip from her own cup. He sighed and followed suit. The taste was unexpectedly familiar, like something between mint and burned coffee. "I hate that this is good," he admitted. The room adjusted, star maps shrinking into abstract patterns, political data fading into the walls. The space felt less like a throne room now and more like a place where decisions happened quietly. "You saved my life," she said. "Not because you understood who I was, but because you reacted." I tripped into heroism, he said. Happens more than you'd think. Among my people, she continued, acts without calculation are rare. Power teaches restraint, caution, delay. Yeah, he said. Humanity prefers panic and snacks. She smiled faintly. The assassination was meant to look accidental, a malfunction. My death would have unified several hostile factions. And instead, he said, gesturing around, you're drinking mood tea with a guy who doesn't know when to shut up. Instead, she agreed, they must rethink everything. A small holographic projection bloomed between them. Threads of light representing alliances, probabilities shifting as one thread pulsed brighter than the rest. That's me, isn't it? He said. The annoying glowing one. Yes. He leaned back. I'd apologize, but I feel like that would be inappropriate. On the contrary, she said, you've become an anomaly, a secret variable. For now, you will return to duty as if nothing happened. And if someone asks why my wrist unit is still broken, tell them it's human technology. He snorted, fair. Silence settled, not awkward, just thoughtful. She studied him again, curiosity no longer disguised. You spoke to me as an equal, she said. You joked, you argued, you never bowed. I didn't know I was supposed to, he replied. Kinda late now. Exactly, she said. A signal chimed softly. Time apparently was done being patient. They'll escort you back, she said, standing. You will forget this room exists. I'm very bad at forgetting, he said. I know, she replied. That too is inconvenient. As the walls began to shift and the exit reappeared, he paused. For what it's worth, he said, I hope your next day is less assassination. Why? She inclined her head. I hope yours is less meaningful. They shared a look, brief, private, before the universe resumed pretending nothing extraordinary had happened, even as it quietly rearranged itself around them both. Nothing happened for 3 days, which made the soldier deeply suspicious. His life experience suggested that when the universe went quiet, it was usually inhaling. He was back on duty, same uniform, same checkpoint, same wrist unit now miraculously functional and aggressively normal. It beeped when it should, complained when ignored, and displayed nothing that suggested he had recently had tea with an Empress. If not for a faint headache and a lingering sense of improbability, he might have believed the whole thing was stress-induced imagination. Around him the station moved on. Ships arrived late, ships departed early. A customs officer argued with a gelatinous life form about the definition of carry-on. All perfectly ordinary. Then the rumors started. They didn't come through official channels. They never did. They came in the pauses between conversations, in overheard jokes that weren't quite jokes, in data spikes that vanished as soon as someone tried to log them. The continuum was mobilizing. Trade routes were shifting. Diplomatic envoys were being recalled, replaced, or quietly erased from schedules. His supervisor stopped by, pretending to check patrol metrics. Anything strange? She asked casually. He considered this. Define strange. She sighed. Anything stranger than usual? No, he said. Just the usual existential dread. She nodded, satisfied, and walked away. That night the station lights dimmed an hour early. Artificial stars flickered overhead, rearranging themselves into patterns no one remembered approving. The soldier stood off shift, watching as a massive Virelian vessel slipped into orbit, sleek, luminous, unmistakably sovereign. It didn't dock, it didn't need to, it simply existed there, a reminder. His wrist unit vibrated once, a single encrypted pulse. No text, no source. He stared at it. You've got to be kidding me. In a private observation bay he definitely wasn't authorized to access, a familiar presence waited. No guards, no ceremony, just her, standing with the planet rotating slowly behind her. They're moving faster than anticipated, she said. Of course they are, he replied. You ever notice that anticipated is just a fancy word for about to go wrong? She smiled thinly. Your interference created instability. Now I must be visible, untouchable. And me. You, she said, remain invisible. Story of my life. She stepped closer. There was tension now, not fear, but weight, choices pressing in from every side. You could be reassigned, she said. Promoted, protected. He shook his head. Then they'd notice me, and that seems counterproductive. A pause, then a quiet laugh. You understand strategy better than my advisors. Don't tell them that, he said. They'd hate me. The ship outside shifted position, engines humming like restrained thunder. Time was closing again, not toward death this time, but toward consequence. Be careful, she said. He shrugged. I usually am, accidentally. She met his gaze, something unspoken passing between them, respect perhaps, or recognition. When she was gone, the stars resumed their approved configuration. The soldier returned to his post, just another figure in uniform. Across the galaxy, power realigned. And somewhere deep in the machinery of fate, a note was added in very small letters. Account for human unpredictability. By the time the Empress returned to her throne world, the soldier had long since resumed his duties, though nothing about him was quite the same. He still walked the checkpoints, still muttered complaints about scanners, still spilled tea on the wrong console, but he carried a subtle awareness that the universe could shift on a single choice, a single instinct, and that even the smallest person could affect empires. The station above Neurali's had quieted again. Traffic moved with habitual precision. Off-world merchants argued politely over pricing, and drones hummed their soft choruses. The soldier kept his humor intact, though now it was tinged with the knowledge that the ordinary was never truly ordinary. A whisper traveled through the station, faint and impossible to trace. Rumors of the Empress's survival, the aborted assassination, the unpredictable human who had interfered, all circulated like static on a frequency too subtle to fully detect. Observers on distant worlds adjusted calculations, noting anomalies, revising assumptions, and quietly acknowledging that one human had rewritten probability. He kept seeing her in small ways, reflections in polished surfaces, glints of light shaped like ears that weren't human, the brief sense of calm and amusement in moments of chaos. It was as if her presence had imprinted itself on him, invisible but tangible. One evening, he found himself in the observation bay he had no clearance for. He watched the Virelian ships moving silently in orbit, elegant, deliberate, and serene. His wrist unit vibrated, a single pulse, familiar and untraceable. He smiled, shaking his head. "You always have to make things interesting, don't you?" he muttered. A voice came, soft and measured, from the comm link he hadn't activated. "You've learned to be unpredictable in the best way," she said. "I trust your judgment now more than any of my advisors. That is a rare thing." "Rare is my specialty," he replied. "It pairs well with sarcasm." She laughed quietly, and for a moment the galaxy felt lighter. Not peaceful exactly. There were always tensions, calculations, and hidden threats, but balanced in a way it hadn't been before. The soldier understood that he had not merely disrupted an assassination. He had changed the way power, duty, and loyalty interacted across worlds. Weeks passed. Life returned to routine, but the soldier noticed subtleties he never had before. The hesitation in a civilian's step, the fleeting expression of a diplomat's doubt, the quiet hum of a drone that seemed just slightly more attentive. He had grown in ways that didn't show on reports or badges. He had learned that courage was not always about valor in battle. Sometimes it was about presence, awareness, and the willingness to act when no one expected it. And somewhere across the continuum, an empress who ruled billions carried a small, private memory of a human who had stood where he shouldn't, spoken when he shouldn't, and laughed when it mattered most. Their connection remained secret, unspoken, yet powerful, a reminder that even across light years, worlds, and species, understanding and respect could bridge unimaginable divides. He returned to his post the next morning, greeting the crowd with the same grumbles and wry humor, but now with a quiet confidence. He had faced more than most would ever imagine, survived with his quirks intact, and realized that sometimes ordinary people, humans with bad timing and stubborn instincts, could quietly change the fate of galaxies. The station lights flickered into the artificial dawn. He straightened his shoulders, adjusted his helmet, and waited, knowing that life, for all its plans and calculations, could still surprise. And sometimes,